wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
You're listening to A Quirky Journey, the healthy family podcast with your hosts Jo Whitten and Leah Follett.
Welcome to A Quirky Journey. Join us as we share our family's journeys to good health. You'll find plenty of inspiration, tips and recipe ideas, as well as stories from everyday people who have struggled and overcome health problems and diet challenges in their own families. I'm not Jo Whitten, author of the blog and book Quirky Cooking, but she is right here next to me.
Hello.
And we're joined by our lovely co-host, Fouad. Hi, Fouad.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Good.
We're having fun.
Alright, so maybe we should introduce Rachel. Jo, kick us off.
We should, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
So that was actually
who
Rachel.
That?
That was just to confuse you all. That was Rachel.
Hi, guys.
Rachel Favilla, who is the author of the blog
Real
Soup
Soup for the Real Soul.
And she also is my helper in the Quirky Gaps group, answering questions in there and keeping an eye on things. What else do you do? Talk about yourself,
I
Rachel.
transcribe the A Quirky Journey podcast.
Yes, so for those of you who are not listening to this podcast and wish you could read it, you won't hear this. No. But if you ever want to read the podcast, Rachel transcribes them for me. So you can email and ask for that.
And I'm helping out on your new gut health program group as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. I'll have a podcast out on the Wellness Couch soon, hopefully end of January if all things go to plan, for teenagers. So kind of like this one, but more for specifically
focused on younger people.
Yeah, focused on younger people because we're kind of left behind in the world of podcasts, I feel. So
Rachel's 19.
Yes.
And she's been on this journey for how long?
Oh, well, how far back do we want to go? Probably since I was 11, but yeah. We want to get nitpicky.
And she's been researching and learning, and she is amazing because she knows so much more than most adults I know.
Oh, stop it.
Oh, you are an adult now, sorry.
That's okay.
It's just that you're the same age as my daughter, so I
know. I'm like a baby still. Yeah.
It's a cool time now when a 19-year-old can know more about health and nutrition than I did until I turned 30 years old.
I know, same here. I think I would have been probably 40 before I don't think I even knew what she knew until about last year.
Well, get really sick.
Let's not talk about how old I am, though.
No.
Jo, you're going to have to speak up.
Why? Can't you hear me?
No, I'm just joking. You're getting old and your voice is way...
It's so creaky. I can't.
Now.
Do you need to take it out?
I'm the old one here. I know.
Oh, no. It's fine. Anyway, we should probably get into...
Yes, we're going to actually answer your questions tonight. So we've got some a Q&A happening here, and we've been going through the questions that we were given in the chat group, the Quirky Cooking Chat Group. So we're going to go through as many of them as we can. We probably won't get through them all in one session, but we'll have a good go of it, won't we?
Yeah. Why not?
So, and I just meant to say too, with Rachel's story, if you want to hear her whole story, there is a podcast where I interview Rachel. And it's really interesting because she talks about anxiety and depression and healing from an autoimmune disease and parasites and gut health and gaps. And so I'll link to that on the bottom of the podcast or the top.
Yeah. Don't think I talked about parasites in that one. I didn't know, but maybe we should do one on parasites.
We should.
Another one.
We should. We should do one on your continuing story.
Let's do it.
Okay, we'll do that while you're here.
Okay.
So Rachel's staying with me for the week. So.
Yeah. Very lucky. She's cooking for me. It's amazing.
I hate to interrupt. This will keep going if I don't say something here.
Okay, all right.
Serious.
So all right, let's kick this off. Felicity Cole says, hello, I have a question. What should I fry/barbecue with? I get rice bran oil or olive oil or ghee or coconut oil. Jo, what are your thoughts?
I would tend to not use rice bran oil because it's highly processed. We were actually having a talk about this today. Any oils that you can't naturally squeeze something and squish it and get oil out of probably isn't the best thing to use. Whereas olives and coconut and ghee, you can make your own oil at home if you want to out of those. I would tend to use something that's got a high smoke point for frying and barbecuing. Ghee is great. Coconut oil is pretty good. olive oil is probably third.
Yeah, I reckon. And
If you look up the smoke points of oils, that's where you get your ideas from of which ones to use for what. But do you want to explain that, Fouad?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people know and understand that smoking point isn't the be all and end all of oils and frying and all that, because you will see that there's a lot of highly processed oils that have a high smoke point,
yes,
which means that if you're going by that, you'll end up eating oils that are bad for
I
you.
meant natural ones that are
So,
high.
yeah.
yeah.
No, I know, but just to clarify. So, in terms of frying and barbecuing, so we know that the saturated fats have a higher smoking point than the monounsaturates or the polyunsaturates. So you get the coconut oil is ideal for that. So it's really, really good for having a high smoke point. The problem I find with coconut oil is when it gets really hot, the flavor changes and it just has a bit of a the flavor is just not as nice when it's too hot. So I prefer ghee for that, which has I think it has a lower smoking point because it has more monounsaturates in it than saturated fats, but it's still quite suitable for frying. It's a traditional fat for frying, like you'd see in India. People would fry samosas on the street side with ghee. That's it's fine for that. Just freshness is key. Like, don't overuse it. Don't do it too many times, and make sure the oil is clean. Olive oil is if it's fresh and it has a lot of antioxidants in it, which and that comes from freshness basically and proper storage and handling. Then you'll get the benefits of the preservatives that are natural in the olive oil that protect it from breaking down at high heat. And that's so be careful with olive oil, but if it's really good quality, don't worry about frying too much, but make sure you just don't burn it.
Yeah. Can I just add something to that question? Would that be okay?
Sure.
I was just going to say, with the barbecue, just if you can, use a hot plate barbecue rather than just over the open flame, because the flame can actually turn, like, when you get like the black charring on your food, that can create carcinogens. So just maybe if you're using a barbecue with the frying, you might want to just use the hot plate if you can.
It won't be as delicious, but it'll be better.
Yeah.
Okay. Jenny James. A lot of paleo desserts use coconut cream, and more times than not, it's a strong taste and overpowers the food. My screen's gone funny.
For example, cheesecake.
Yeah, can you keep going?
Yeah, what's a good substitute for coconut cream in cheesecake? Okay, so I would use cashew cream. Swap the two. It doesn't really matter which one you use. It's the same sort of texture, and you're setting it with gelatin, or you can use agar to set it. You can leave it out, and just not use. But this lady's basically saying she doesn't like the flavour of the coconut, so I would just go for a cashew cream. Obviously, if you can have dairy, you could do something like a kefir cream.
Yeah, or homemade sour cream.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like a mild yogurt as well.
Yeah,
mild
that'd be yummy. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's good. Gemma asks, if you could only pick just 3 fruits/vegetables to eat organically, what would they be?
Now this is a good one. A lot of times we sort of go for the dirty dozen, try and figure out what's the worst on the list. Leafy greens are always a big one.
Yeah, they're number one, I think.
Yeah,
almost. And broccoli, apples are quite heavily sprayed. Berries are definitely heavily sprayed.
So you need to be really careful of those. But when we were discussing this before, Fouad had a good point that's not the only thing you should consider. So do you want to mention that, Fouad?
Yeah, I think the frequency of consumption is really paramount here. So, like, if you're having vegetables all the time, like I have a lot of cabbage all the time, and I feel not only do I want to lower the toxic load on my body, but also if it's a vegetable that I'm contributing to the economy of, I want to make sure that I'm not, spraying the earth to death with pesticides. So that's for one thing, and also also it's better for me because I'm eating, even though it might not be as bad, because I don't know, you guys might know better, but I think cabbage is relatively okay because it's mostly protected.
That's what they say, just peel off the outer leaves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but despite that, it's just better for you if it's something that you eat a lot. Like I eat cabbage almost every day.
Yeah,
Me too. I love cabbage.
So yeah, that just choose the ones that you eat a lot of, and like if you can find that sweet spot where you have a vegetable that you eat a lot of and sits in the dirty dozen, then eat that organically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. What's the best egg substitute from tried and tested methods for binding and then for a rise? Okay, well, with eggs, one thing, I get this question all the time, can I change your recipe to use chia gel, or can I use applesauce or whatever? It depends on how many eggs are in the recipe. If it's 3 or more eggs, you're going to have trouble probably changing it to egg-free. 3 maybe, 4 probably not. And sometimes I get the question with recipes where I've separated the egg yolks from the whites and whipped the whites to give the aeration in the recipe, and that's pretty difficult to do something like that with a chia gel. It gives you the binding, but it doesn't give you the rising. What you can do if it's just a couple of eggs, if the eggs are used, you've got to ask yourself, what are the eggs used for in this recipe? If it's just for binding, then chia gel might be fine, or banana or applesauce or something. But if it's also for rising, you need to add a bit more bicarb soda or baking powder. I do have a ratio in my cookbook in the substitutes section. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
I don't have any experience in egg-free baking. I'm sorry. I love eggs.
Yeah, I think tapioca is good for binding. That's like a very sticky kind of starch that helps a lot. If you're making like an almond bread or something like that, a couple of spoons of tapioca really, really help.
Yeah. And if anyone's wondering what chia gel is, basically instead of 1 egg, it's 1 tablespoon of chia seeds ground up with 3 tablespoons of water. And that replaces 1 egg. And you just let it sit for 5 minutes and it turns into a gel.
Kelly says, what do you think of using the powdered bone broths if you are time poor?
Okay, so like Broth of Life, broth powder, I always have them on hand for when I run out of broth, actually, because when you're in a rush...
Yeah, they're so handy.
They're so handy.
And is a bone broth like gelatin? What is it?
Yes, so it does have the gelatin in it. So they make the broths traditionally with the organic bones. Broth of Life, I've looked at, I actually know the lady that owned it, and I know the 2 ladies that own it now, and they've talked me through it. So they make the bone broth traditionally. It's beautifully made. It's a beautiful broth that gels just like a normal broth, and then they simmer it down until they can dehydrate it. They've had it scientifically tested, and it's got everything in it that... when you reconstitute it, it's got everything in it that a normal broth has.
Yeah.
The only thing that I find is you don't have the flavour, and when you use it, you don't have that thick jelly feeling of it. But
is it flavourless?
It doesn't have salt in it, so you won't get much flavour. Oh, does it?
Yeah, it does.
It does have salt. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. It doesn't have much flavour.
It's nice. I like it like added to things that you've already used, like to enhance a broth, give it even more healing.
It actually does have flavour when I add it to things. Oh, sorry, I just mean like sometimes
by
I've had
in a mug. It's not the same as like when you've just made a fresh chicken broth and you're having it.
And that tastes amazing.
Can you make like a fruit jelly out of the powder? Or
no, it does have a bit of flavour. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's just when people have said to me, I bought some of that and I put it in put a spoonful in a cup of boiling water and it didn't dissolve properly and it didn't taste nice. I'm like, I usually cook with it.
Yeah.
I put it into the water in a recipe and let it cook like you would with a stock cube.
Yeah, basically. I think nutritionally it's like just as good. But if you want the full broth experience, like having a hot brothy, it just needs to be homemade. But I think it's a great product if you're time poor.
Yeah, I do too.
Michelle says, I eat paleo and am fructose intolerant. If I try the GAP site, could I eventually include high fructose back into my diet? I so miss onions and garlic.
This one is for Rachel.
I was the typical fructose malabsorbed person, especially when it came to onion and garlic. Look, I did GAPs, and within a few weeks I was able to have garlic again, and about a month I was able to have onion. My only tip would, most people I think will get enough healing to introduce it, because I was severely intolerant to onion. I wasn't just like, a little bit, it was like really bad.
What kind of symptoms did you have?
Like massive stomach distension, like stomach cramps, really painful, gas, not too much information, just putting it out there, it happened. And that went away, but I really overdid it then with the onion, and I started reacting to it again. I had to take it out for a bit, but I've just recently introduced it and it's doing okay again. So I'd say bring it back, but don't make yourself French onion soup. Maybe just, put it like one onion in a whole meal and you can have that meal. Or if you're making something individual serve, maybe just use a quarter of an onion. I'd still rely on things like chives if you want that flavor and you want more of it, just to err on the side of caution. But if there's no other underlying problems as to why you wouldn't be healing, I'd say that you'll definitely heal enough to get it back, just not in excessive amounts.
Yeah, I agree. I think with any kind of intolerance or allergy or something like that, you have to look at the factors of where they come from. If they come from genetic factors and it's something that you won't be able to change through food, then no diet is going to be able to help you. But if it is something that's just come from a dysbiosis, say for instance you don't have the right bacteria in your stomach or your immune system's not right and all that, then the suitable diet will help you. And if GAPS turns out to be the suitable diet for you, then it will help you. Yeah. But there's no guarantee that it is. But anecdotally, it seems to be a great diet for that. Is that correct, Rachel?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just actually thought of something else. Onion and garlic are both very highly anti-parasitic. So it could be, I actually sometimes wonder whether instead of having fructose malabsorption, it was my parasites, because there were lots of fructose malabsorption things that I was, the FODMAPs, I should say, that I was actually okay with, whereas I shouldn't have been. Sometimes if you have a problem with them, I'm not saying you do have parasites, but you might want to look into that. And also if you have any issues with coconut oil, you might want to look into that, because those are three highly anti-parasitic foods, and if you have parasites, they're not going to like it.
Really good point. Mary spoke about that in our podcast together. That was really enlightening. So,
she was making the fermented garlic, wasn't she?
Yeah. To try that, actually.
So, I guess, Michelle, the good thing to do is to try to do some root cause analysis. He's a software engineer in me talking about root cause analysis. But, you just have to kind of try to find out why you're intolerant to fructose and work your way from there. And, see, hopefully it's something that's manageable and you can get back to health on a high-quality diet such as GAPS, and good luck.
Good luck, Michelle.
Yeah. Next one's for you, Fouad.
Yeah.
All right.
Mel. Hi, Mel. Mel's our friend. She wants to know how much butter Fouad eats each week.
Firstly, hi, Mel. Thanks for your question. And that's a very good question. I know you're having a good laugh at me at the moment about how much butter I eat. There was a time in my life when I ate a lot of butter. And I could sometimes, maybe 3 years ago, my snack at work was like a half stick of butter with a few carrots or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and people would just look at me as if I was I was dying. And then I go and get lunch. I swear this happened to me one day. I went to this place next to my work, and I was buying lunch, and I asked the guy to give me all the vegetables. I had all these steamed vegetables. I said, just give me steamed vegetables, and can you just put some butter on top? And I also got the lamb. So he gave me the lamb, and I said, can I have a bit of pork crackling as well, And the girl looked at me next to me as if I was dying from something, and this was my last meal on earth, and I was just as if the only way you could eat this and survive is just if you're not gonna survive. And there was so much butter and so much fat on it. I'm really not afraid of that stuff at all. I even remember sometimes just having a dry spot on my arm, and just I had some butter in front of me. I just moisturized with butter. So it's not
great stuff.
It's good, and I think if it's a good quality butter, and we have a lot of cows on grass, in Australia, and we have like West Gold butter that comes from New Zealand, and they have all their cattle on grass there. And if it's grass-fed butter, there's no real reason to worry about eating it unless you're having a lot of other kind of refined carbohydrates with it. So if you're having like a paleo diet and you're eating a whole foods diet, then you don't worry about your butter consumption as much. So sometimes I could have reached around a stick a day. That was, but now, and I also used to do that butter coffee for a while, and it helped me a lot. I lost a lot of weight on that. I've lost 34 kilos all up, and
that was while you were doing that.
And
that's great.
It's a good testimony for it.
Yeah.
Eat butter.
It's really good. It's a nutritionally dense food. It doesn't spike your insulin. It's very satiating. You don't feel hungry when you have it. And it's low in toxicity. Especially if it comes from a good cow. So I don't find that to be problematic. But now I just my diet has changed a lot since I've lost all that weight, and because my concern isn't around the carbohydrates as much, because I used to be insulin resistant and that was a big problem for me, but now I'm okay with carbohydrates. So I have a more garden variety paleo diet, which has a lot of different vegetables, sufficient amounts of fat and protein, and I just eat like a normal human being who is not conscious of his diet. It's just someone who just eats food. I'll just still avoid the glutinous grains and all the refined stuff.
We should just mention here about fats. I do get the question of the other way. Some people worry that it's going to put weight on them. Some people worry that, okay, fats are supposed to be good for losing weight. I don't want to lose weight. So how much fat should I have? And both Rachel and I were both the opposite of Fouad. We needed to gain weight. And we've both found fats really helpful for us. So who knows, mate? What does it do? How does that work? It just balances.
I suppose it assists so much with, if you're having the really good fats, it assists with the healing, and then your body does with the nutrients what it wants to do.
It's certainly about making you healthy. It's not making you lose weight. It's making you healthy.
So
if you come from
I think seeing it as a need. Don't think about weight. We need fat. Regardless of our weight.
I mean, the purpose of any kind of intervention diet is to bring you to a place of health, and then after that, it should just move over to just normal eating.
That's right.
And so eat food that is low in toxicity to your specific needs. Whatever your toxic, aversions are, just avoid those. Eat the foods that are full of nutrition and low in toxicity. Get to a place of health. Supplement with things like probiotics. Get a lot of sunshine, a bit of movement in your day. A lot of good, happy people around you, and you're doing well. I think. All right. So Jade says, have we covered this one, Joe?
No, we haven't.
Oh, no. Okay. Jay says, I've been trying to substitute coconut oil for ghee in baking due to sensitivity. Would it be a 1-to-1 ratio? I know I can't replace for everything.
Okay, so basically she's using ghee instead of coconut oil. And I think that's perfectly fine. When we first started GAPS, I was using coconut oil all the time because I couldn't handle any dairy. And it took a long time to get to the place where I could use ghee. But now that I can use ghee, I use it for everything. It's just so yummy. Now and then I'll do something with coconut oil because I know, there's still people at the stage that I was where I couldn't have the ghee. So I do recipes for them. Or for
I didn't know that you ate ghee that much now. You use it for everything, do you?
I use it in, if I'm frying meat, I always put a fair bit of ghee in the pan if I'm doing scrambled eggs.
I've got a bit of a treat for you then next time you come to Sydney.
Awesome. Is it the pepper saya ghee?
No, it's actually, it's a very, very difficult to find product. It's a Middle Eastern product which is actually sheep's milk ghee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's hard to find in Australia, and it's hard to make because sheep's milk comes out naturally homogenized.
Oh.
So the fat doesn't float on top.
Okay.
So they have to actually put it through the centrifuge, and but you have to be in a country where there's a lot of sheep. And not only sheep, but sheep that are dairy sheep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so.
Well, that'll be interesting.
It's really nice.
I add a couple of giant big spoonfuls to just about every meal. Like
you put it in the lamb broth last night. That was amazing.
Yeah, I made some lamb broth for Rachel with lamb shanks, garlic, onion, bit of vinegar, and then big heap of ghee.
So good.
Tastes so good. Yeah. But yeah, there's maybe something like a cheesecake where you add coconut oil to the creamy mixture. I don't know how ghee would go in that, but other than that, you could try it. Couldn't taste bad.
It works in, when I wasn't gluten free and I did use coconut oil, because my wife's dairy intolerant. Coconut oil actually does do shortbread and that kind of stuff. It works fine for it. It's not a big deal. Next question.
Okay, so this one is from Beatrice, and she'd like to know Fouad's daughter's story, because you've mentioned it that she needs to eat gluten-free, but you haven't really talked about it in depth. So do you want to give us a bit of a background?
Yeah, so I actually, my daughter doesn't have any kind of crazy story. It's and she's not gluten intolerant. I am in the household. My daughter Sarah has no allergies at all. My little one Sophie, she's got dairy and egg allergies, and she has some problems with some nuts and some berries, like strawberry. Okay. And I don't know why. Not really sure. Both of them came into the world in very similar ways from the same woman, and who was healthy as well. So it's not like there's any specific story that I can tell around Sophie. It's just that she was born with these allergies. Her skin gets blotchy, and she starts scratching a lot when she has food that irritates her. But it's not the gluten. The gluten has always been my issue. And we don't have gluten in our house because we believe that if we include anything that is actually made with a pasta or a bread or anything like that it will replace other calories in our diet that could be nutritionally dense otherwise. Yeah. So, instead of having just a piece of bread with, I don't know what people have, say a bit of ham or whatever, we just have the ham with vegetables and avocado. Yeah. So we end up having similar or even a little bit more calories, but they're better calories for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But your wife is dairy free, so
my wife's dairy free.
Yeah.
And we're looking at starting GAPS this year.
Yeah.
Hopefully within the next few weeks, if we can manage it.
So this podcast will change over from a quirky journey to a Fouad journey. No.
Yeah. Well.
We'll record yours.
Yeah. And we will definitely be talking about it. I'll be talking about it. It's but may as well talk about it now. In that there is a trepidation around it that we feel there's a lot of commitment.
I know this really good program you could do.
Yeah. Well, when is it out? Is it ready, Joe?
Not quite.
So, guys, if you don't know, Joe's working on a GAPS program, and it should be ready within the next 4 weeks sometime.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Hoping.
And just basically helping people cook through the intro phase, because that's the bit that overwhelms everybody.
Yeah, and that's where we're at. We're at the overwhelmed and daunted by the prospect of starting GAPS phase.
Which is crazy because you guys eat paleo, which is so close anyway.
Yeah, we do, but also you've got really young kids.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, taking out the fruit and stuff is difficult for little kids.
Yeah, and Sarah has zero need for GAPS, and then you have a highly restricted diet for Sophie, and she's going to look at what Sarah's eating. I don't want to put Sarah through that as well. So there's all these things that are going in my head. Lainey and I are trying to resolve these things before we move forward. So
we'll be interested to hear what you decide to do.
Yeah.
I might, just take Sarah and go live somewhere else for a few weeks.
Retreat.
Yeah.
See how it goes.
Well, I've pretty much got a GAPS retreat going here, so right, Rachel.
Oh, well, maybe Nate and Sophie come and stay with you, Joe.
Yeah, they can come up here and swim in the lake every day.
Yeah,
perfect. All right.
Okay, Tracy, what to do if you accidentally get glutened, and how to detox. We did talk about that in the last podcast, which is the Christmas podcast. So, Tracy, you might want to have a listen to that one. We talk about when you, pretty much whatever your allergy is or your intolerance, when you accidentally get a reaction from having a little bit, some ways to detox. Do you want to talk about that at all, Rachel? You got anything to say on that?
I don't know. If I got gluten, I'd just cry.
That's a detox mechanism.
Yeah,
I know.
That's right.
Yeah, so have a good cry, and then make a broth. Yeah, I'd say take it right back to basics for maybe like 5 days or so, and just really easy to digest stuff. Lots of greens greens are really good for a detox. Garlic's really good. Fermented foods, all basically do a really all those
stage 1 GAPS.
Yes, do stage 1 or 2. Also, GAPS, just to give your body the best shot at rejuvenating itself. And It's
funny. Whenever I in the past, before I started GAPS, whenever I had a reaction to dairy, it was always like it would end up like a flu feeling. I'd get this flu sort of thing, and to get rid of it, I would do pretty much GAPS. I didn't know GAPS back then, but I would go completely grain-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and broths and everything. Yeah. And that's how I would get over it. And then I would get over it in about 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I reckon. Chicken soup.
Chicken soup.
Just make a chicken soup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like there's this meditation technique that I use called DRAIN, which is like recognize, accept, investigate, and nourish, which I find works for this as well, because like a lot of the times when we get an exposure to some kind of allergen, like say gluten, we don't know about it, and you can get grumpy, or you can just have mood swings, or get tired and you don't know why. You begin by recognizing that something has happened. So you start by going, oh yeah, actually I had gluten, and you go, yeah, well, then you accept it. There's no need to get angry about it. And then you just investigate. So you go like, how did this happen? Make sure it doesn't happen again, and then you nourish at the end, which works really well. Hey,
I like that. That's
really
good. Sometimes I have nightmares that I get gluten, and I wake up, I'm like, it's okay, I didn't eat the cake.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
You're overdoing it when you're having a nightmare about gluten.
I know.
It's obvious that you've had reactions though.
Oh yeah. They've been severe.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yes.
All right, Bronte says, actually, that file is just completely corrupted here. Joe, you're going to have to read the question.
That's okay. Yeah. Bronte says the basics of how to make a meal plan that works, so you're not making dinner at 9 p.m. at night and buying lunch every day. 9 p.m. overnight. I think she means so making dinner for the next day, I think, and buying lunch every day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a lot of different ways to go about meal planning, and for some people, if you're a real structured, scheduled, list-making type of organised person, which I used to be before I had kids. No. Fouad, I know you don't believe that, but I used to be.
No,
and,
it's not true. Don't lie to the listeners.
It's so true. I was so scheduled. My kids all slept, to a time schedule. They were very scheduled children.
My mum did that with me.
Yeah, and they just all slept through the night nicely and did the good things that babies are supposed to do. But when it came to meal planning, I got a bit slack after a while because I actually used to meal plan for a whole month at a time, Fouad.
Wow.
Oh,
and I had that up on my fridge. But I think you can overdo it because we did discuss this earlier. If you have this idea that you have to stick to recipes that you've picked out ahead of time, and then you go to the shops and there's something that's in season and it's on special and it's good quality, and you really should be eating seasonal local produce. You go to the markets, you get your veggie box or whatever, and it doesn't fit into your meal plan, what are you going to do? Let it go bad on the countertop? So what I generally do, and this is what my mum always taught me, was I kind of do a few shops in a week. I know they say you save more money if you do one shop a week, but I just can't seem to do that. I'll go to the markets on, say, a Saturday morning. I'll get my veggie box on a Thursday afternoon, and I'll also go to the butcher's somewhere in there in the supermarket. And depending on what I've got in those boxes or what's at the markets, I'll make my meal plan from that. So I try to use what I've got on hand to make my meal plan. So I'll do my meal plan after I've been shopping, and then the next time I go shopping, I'll get whatever else I need.
So we know who's doing the meal plan section for our Paleo cookbook. It's going to be you, Joe, because I've never done a meal plan in my life. Like, we usually just cook a big batch of something. We eat that for like a day and a half or two.
Yeah.
And then we make another batch of something else.
Yeah.
But like, why do people do meal plans? Why is that a thing?
The thing is, if you're working full time and you get home at the end of the day and you go, oh, what's for dinner? I'm exhausted. It's 6 p.m. Some people, at 7 p.m., they open the fridge. There's nothing there. It's stressful, and they end up, everyone's starving. The kids are cranky. The husband's cranky or whatever. And you just end up going to the shops and buying something quick or getting takeaway. And that happens a lot. I've had people who work, when I was doing Thermomix demonstrations and I'd go to people's home and cook with them, I've had people tell me that they bought meals out 5 times a week.
Right, okay.
Because of that whole, it's too stressful, I get home and I'm tired thing. But I find if I know ahead of time what I'm going to cook, and you can do it really flexible, you don't have to plan every meal. What you can do is make a list of 5 meals that you're going to make and try to vary the meat and veggies. So you might say one day's fish, one day's vegetarian, one day's chicken, one day's beef, one day's lamb. So pick out those things first and then say, okay, what am I going to make out of those? Pick out recipes from what's in season and what you've got in the fridge and freezer, and just do 5 meals that you can write on a list, stick it on the fridge, and then you can swap and change it on what days you feel like having it. So if you might come home and you go, well, I don't have time for the roast, but I do have time for the butter chicken, so I'll do that one tonight. So you can be more flexible with it.
Yeah.
And as much as possible, prepare ahead. Like, a lot of people do weekend baking and batch cooking and get stuff in the freezer. But even if you just chop up a heap of veggies and put them in bags in the fridge, like chop up a whole pumpkin into cubes, chop up a whole bag of carrots, a whole heap of broccoli, put it all into the fridge ready to go, and you can grab that out and cook a really quick meal in 20 minutes because everything's already chopped.
That's so true.
So things like that, if you know what veggies you're going to be using in your meals for the next couple of days, you can chop them 2 days early if you want to, for most things. And I find it's good to get help if you've got kids, and if you've got, or neighbour kids, or somebody that's 10 years old or more that can chop veggies. Pay them a little bit to come and help you with prep if you need to.
For me, I find the veggies to be the least consuming.
I just find a lot of people don't cook home meals because all of that chopping time, they think it just takes too long.
Right. Okay. But
so
for me,
it's
you're just
like it's done.
Yeah, maybe that might be.
Used to it.
Yeah, but I think the meat is sort of like where I love to sort of have, like, let's say I cook like in the slow cooker that lamb shoulder or beef, like a roast or something, and then you cut it up and you freeze it already cooked, something that would otherwise have taken a long time.
Yeah, that's
then
right.
You can just use it. And I love that. I love just being able to use these things.
I love being able to do that kind of thing on the weekend. Just cook a heap of stuff.
We'll have a roast on a Sunday, and then we'll have roast meat left over for the week.
Right, yeah. Cut it really thin. And serve it with heaps of veggies, and then you eke it out.
And I think simplifying your expectation of a meal, it doesn't need to be a spread or anything like that. Like a single dish, just one thing.
And I always have things in the fridge that can be used as fillers. So I've got things like sauerkraut. I might have, I've got a fermented beetroot dip that's a Kehoe's Kitchen. Oh,
love
so
that.
good.
It's so good.
You can dollop it on food. You can eat it with sea crackers, whatever. Sour cream.
Avocado.
Yeah.
It's expensive filler, but still a filler.
Veggie crackers that you can make yourself and dehydrate, which I have a recipe coming up in my program.
Yeah. Nut butter.
I really like the sauerkraut thing because I think like what I do with it sometimes I treat it like a cabbage in a salad, so I would actually put olive oil and I put sesame oil and sesame seeds in it, and that's really good. And you just need like a couple of drops of sesame oil to add the flavor. Just
eggs are good bulking out meals.
That's true, actually. So volume.
Yeah. Okay, we should go on to the next one.
Yes,
sorry.
This one's for Fouad.
Okay, this one's Erin, and she says...
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Oh, no, sorry. She also asked about meal planning, so we'll go on to the next one. Okay, Jenny says, I know alcohol is not recommended, but if I were to have a drink or two, what is the safest? So that's for you, Fouad, because I wouldn't have a clue.
Me neither.
Yeah, well, it really depends where the problem lies. Like, if you're on a paleo diet, like paleo would say the best alcohol to have would be red wine. I mean, that's probably the oldest, most traditional fermented alcohol that we have. But
is it high in sugar, or is it pretty much?
It's all right. I mean, it's what it depends on the variety of the grape that you're having. But a lighter kind of wine is fine. If you're having a glass as well, it's okay. I mean, there's enough in it, enough good stuff in it, like in terms of antioxidants and also stress relief. That it just helps, not that you don't stress too much about having that drink. It's fine to have a glass of red wine, say, with dinner. But that comes from the fact that it's not toxic in terms of fructose that's been converted into alcohol, and the amount of alcohol in it is low enough that it doesn't hurt you. The other thing they say in paleo is like the clear spirits are best, and the ones that are distilled from things other than grain is best as well. So like a vodka is probably fine, a tequila is fine. Things like beer, they're not good because they firstly too high in sugar, and they've come from malted barley, which is glutinous, and you have traces of gluten in there. Apple cider is usually way too sweet anyway, and you shouldn't have that because it's got too much sugar. It's almost like drinking like apple juice, but you end up drinking too much of it, and it's not good. So yes, stick with a glass of red wine whenever you feel like it. With dinner, don't make it a big habit, just something that you have on occasion. And with the clear spirits, you can just, I know Rob Wolf does like a margarita with tequila and that kind of stuff. If you Google Rob Wolf, what does he call it? I'll find the name. I'll put it in show notes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's all.
What foods burn Barry? What foods trigger migraines? What food allergens? I've tried eliminating nightshades. This doesn't affect me. Neither does chocolate, but artificial sweeteners do. Okay, so Rachel's going to talk about this. She's been studying this in nutrition.
Yeah, just started this one actually. I think with migraines, and don't take my word for it, someone out there might be listening going, well, actually I have a dairy allergy and that triggers migraines. So I'm sorry, but in general, from what I've been told and what I'm learning at uni, it's generally a more of a food additive type reaction. So MSG is a big one. Also, just general food additives, anything that kind of has a number. Artificial sweeteners, definitely, especially because some of them, the body doesn't quite recognise what they are, and that can trigger an autoimmune response. I know that things like MSG and some of the artificial sweeteners like aspartame can cross the blood-brain barrier, and if that's doing stuff to the brain, that can cause a headache. So probably I'd say just eat real food, and if you're eating stuff out of a packet, just beware of food additives. Maybe get one of those pocket, those little food additive pocket handbooks from the bookstore, or you can probably get them online, and they'll often tell you which food additives will trigger migraines, and you can just avoid them. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I find with my son, he's 16, and he's very susceptible to getting overheated and overtired.
Yeah.
So if he gets really hot in the summer, like running around playing sports or something, that will trigger a migraine for him. And dehydrated.
Yeah, so be careful. It's not always food. I think we're very quick to blame food, and it can be food a lot of the time, but just try and look at other things in your day, like how stressed are you, how much water did you drink?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get overheated. Yeah.
Yeah, all of those
Are you
things.
eating enough? Because I get a headache if I don't eat
that's
properly and I
point
get low blood sugar.
Yeah, so there's a lot of factors.
Like migraines are a bit different from what I hear to just like normal headaches.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are there.
I've only ever had one in my life, thanks.
Never had one.
Yeah.
How bad is it? Is it really bad?
It's really bad. You can't see properly. You basically have to just sleep because you can't see properly or anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrible. How to gain healthy muscle mass on paleo or GAPS, Kerry would like to know. So probably both of you guys have some good ideas on this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to be exercising to gain the lean muscle mass. I found with GAPS, initially I did lose a bit of weight, but I put it back on plus a bit more. And it was, I think it's just all the good quality protein and fat you're eating, and I suppose you're not having all those blood sugar spikes with all the carbohydrates. So just every mouthful is nutrient dense, and you're finally healing as well. So you're actually starting to absorb stuff, and your body can use it to make muscle. And I just found it was like almost effortless after a few months. I just, I'm really lean. Like I don't have any fat on me, but I have quite a bit of muscle for my tiny little frame. And I don't pump iron or anything at the gym. It's just a bit of running and cycling here and there and a good diet. And
simple.
Yeah. Like I've got good genes, but as well. Thanks, Mum. But yeah, that's all I had to do. It was pretty easy. The diet and just kind of takes care of itself, really.
Yeah.
I'll just add to that.
Yeah.
I think with like adding on the muscle as well, like that's quite often something that people who go on paleo or whatever will like want to have a lot more muscle on, like because they're feeling really fit and they want to be strong. Sometimes the strength isn't proportional to the amount of muscle that you seem to have on you. People have different body types, and some people find it much easier to put on muscles. And it's not really it's just how healthy you feel. And I think also like with as I'm getting older, my focus is becoming less and less on just having more and more muscle, but more focusing on flexibility and mobility, and that's a really big part of. I think as people grow up, this is what sort of looks after you in your old age, and
not being.
If you're not flexible now and you don't have muscle, like I think the flexibility is probably the higher priority. Just make sure that whatever exercise you're doing is actually focusing on mobility.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay, Marion, is the Thermomix version of any paleo cookbooks, especially Pete Evans, coming out soon, or is this question for a different page? Well, Marion, we're glad you asked. So we have a paleo cookbook coming out soon, don't we, Fouad? Well, not too soon because we've got to actually get it done, but
we can say this year.
This year, yay!
Yeah, finally.
Yeah. So Quirky Paleo, we have tried and failed a few times, haven't we? Not failed, but we just haven't really got started properly a few times.
Yeah, I think we just weren't ready for it. And I think now we're
and
just
we know more now.
Yeah,
it's
we do.
It's going to be more awesome.
Yeah, so our aim for this book is to hopefully create a book which becomes the classic paleo cookbook. So like the one that you'll be able to pass on to your children and then to have it go to their grandchildren. Because we feel that this diet will stand the test of time. There's no doubt. It already has. I mean, it is the paleo diet, so it's the oldest diet that we know of. And we just want to have like a cookbook that's just absolutely beautiful. And,
definitely the type of book that you hand down. A bit like what's her name? Julia? No.
Julia Child?
Yes.
It'll
be like that, the paleo version.
Yeah.
But a bit quirky at the same time.
And quirky at the same time.
She was a bit quirky.
She was pretty quirky. No, we are working on that, so stay tuned for that. And it will have Thermomix versions, but it will also have non-Thermomix versions. So whether you have a Thermomix or not, you will love it. We promise.
Okay.
Okay. Erin also asks, gaining weight for little people. My 17-month-old hasn't gained more than 1 kilo since she was 6 months. She eats well, mainly paleo with a bit of rice and your Quirky Cooking gluten-free bread. tips for helping her to gain weight and how to do paleo gaps nut-free. Okay, there's lots in that one. Yeah, so as we mentioned before, both Rachel and I have struggled with gaining weight. And for me, I found until I healed my gut, I could not gain weight. I tried all my teenage years, all my early 20s, right up to till I was 35. And I was around 42 to 45 kilos all that time. Couldn't gain weight. When I was about 35, I started seeing a naturopath and changing my diet to heal my gut, and I gained 5 kilos in 1 year. So if that can be the problem, that there's gut issues. Yeah. What would you say about that, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm very, very similar to you. I could inflame, so I could put on, more so retain fluid, so I could put on weight quickly if I ate the wrong foods. But then as soon as I went back to eating my normal diet, I'd lose that plus interest. And at my thinnest, I was 28 kilos, which I'm really short, by the way, so that's not as bad as it sounds, but it was still pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
It is pretty bad, but I'm like not even 5 foot. So anyway, but once you heal your gut, it's just so easy, and you just kind of balance out to where you need to be, I find, and you just look right.
And I think with little ones, it also depends on, are they breastfeeding? If they're breastfeeding, are you giving them the breastfeed, depending on their age? If they're past 6 months, you should be giving them the solids, and probably the solids first, then the breastfeed, because a lot of times babies will fill up on the breast milk, and they're a year old and they're still filling up on breast milk, and they're not really getting as much from it anymore because they need to move on to solids.
Yeah, they're at a different life stage.
Yeah, so it's important to get the really nutritious, nutrient-dense foods into them first, and then the breastfeed is kind of dessert. Yeah. And I found that with my kids, I had to teach them that, around a year old.
I found... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I go? I was going to say something my mum would always make for me to try and help me build strength was homemade egg custard with banana on top. That's my ultimate comfit food, whenever I'm sick.
Same here, that, and also banana smoothies.
Yeah,
that always helps.
Yeah, me too. Porridges are really good with lots of fruit, dates in them, and all those really hearty, soul comforting foods. Irish stew's another one that was really good. Yeah. Just all that classic stuff.
I think if it's a 17-month-old, definitely go see a nutritionist, a GAPS specialist, or definitely that. This is not something.
If you're trying to eat paleo and GAPS, especially, you do need to go see.
If the kid's not putting on weight at that age, it's really important that you seek professional help for the child. It's really, really important. But with gaining weight, mostly carbohydrates. I mean, that's the stuff that raise your insulin, and then your insulin goes up. Then it signals to your fat cells to store fat, and if you can handle dairy, that's it has insulin-like growth factor, which instigates growth in a human being. I mean, that's why we give children milk. I mean, that's what makes them grow. So if the kids on a dairy-free paleo for no reason, definitely they should be on dairy. They have to have that.
And it can be fermented dairy, which is easier to handle.
Fermented dairy, if that's the problem, just keep dairy. Dairy is very important. I really think so for a child as well. Because typically you would have breastfed them for a long, long time, and if the milk is not there, you should have something that is like milk. But again, a nutritionist or a health specialist, someone who can investigate why your child is not putting on weight. At 17-month-old, they should be growing really quickly. They should be putting on a lot of weight, definitely more than a kilo.
6 months. That's a year.
Yeah. I'd really be looking at the gut with that one. Just, malabsorption, maybe.
Also, how to do paleo gaps nut-free. At the start, one of our podcasts earlier with Kelly McKenzie, I always get her name mixed up, Mary from Good Mood Food, she talked about this because her son was anaphylactic to nuts and still is. That's the one allergy that they're still working through. The rest of them they've healed. But you could probably listen to that podcast, but really a lot of recipes that have nuts in them can be substituted for sunflower seeds and pepitas. If it's a nut cream or a nut milk, you can use coconut milk or coconut cream. You can, if you're on GAPS, you'll start adding in soured dairy cream and sour, yogurt that's been fermented for 24 hours and things like that. So it is easier to do nut-free, I think, on GAPS than paleo probably. But yeah, there's a lot of substitutes for nuts. So it depends on the recipe, really.
The problem comes when in paleo is when you're trying to make bread.
Yeah.
And you can't use flour. And then
I've got bread that's made with pepitas and it's yummy.
Yeah, so there you go. That's
go on my blog and look up the zucchini pepita bread.
Oh, and I make muffins that are just coconut oil and eggs. There's no...
Oh, how do you do that?
You just... what's the recipe exactly? I think it's 2 cups of melted coconut oil and 6 eggs, and you put that all in like a food processor or the Thermomix or the Vitamix, and you whip it up and you just put it into... I think how many does it make? Can't remember, but as many muffin tins basically as it'll fill.
Is it in your blog?
Yeah, sorry, it's on my blog. I think Ultimate Keto Muffins, I think it's called, on realsoupfortherealsoul.com. So
that's good.
Yeah.
And you can use that as a bit of a base, like add things to it?
Absolutely. And if you're not nut-free, there's a recipe that uses nuts. And, you could go, be experimental with it. That's like the template. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so we did answer the question. Also, Wendy had the same question about gaining weight, so we've answered that. We probably should finish off pretty soon because we've been going nearly an hour. But is there anything else that you guys want to say there? Can you see anything else you want to talk about quickly?
Well, there's a few questions about will there be a vegetarian, paleo and vegetarian
cookbook?
Yeah.
That's kind of difficult.
I know, I was just going to
you can obviously do lots of salads and stews and things that are vegetarian and that are grain-free.
Yeah.
But we're sort of on the GAPS side of thing where you need the broth.
You can't do GAPS vegetarian or vegan.
You just really can't.
You need the egg and the egg yolks and the quality dairy. And
what do you think about all that, Fouad?
Yeah, I mean, definitely there are paleo vegetarians. I've met them. They look healthy. And I understand a lot of people won't eat the meat for ethical reasons or environmental reasons.
If they're paleo vegetarian, do they have legumes?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah. They do a lot of coconut products, and that's why they just try to get their fats, like their saturated fats from coconut and palm and things like that.
There's a lot of recipes you can do.
If you're a paleo vegetarian for ethical reasons, then totally understand. If you're a vegetarian for the environment, I really encourage you to look at, the beneficial, the benefits of eating meat that's come from grass-fed cows, because it's very, very different to what the propaganda is now saying. Like, you watch all these movies or read all these books and documentaries, and they'll be talking about, vegetarianism being a better alternative because cows are being, put in feedlots and factory fed, and in Australia that doesn't happen much. We have a lot of ethical practice around that. For instance, I know all our lamb is grass fed.
Yes.
So and try that if you're trying to avoid seafood, which again you've got every right to. But wild caught prawns are really good food. Oysters are really good food. See if there's options for you, because it is really difficult to go on a vegetarian paleo diet. It's not doable, but I know a lot of people will have a lot of sweet potato and a lot of coconut in their diet to just add a lot of that really good starch and really good fat, and that would become the basis of their diet. And it's a restrictive diet compared to one that has meat in it, but every time you remove a core food group out of a diet, it becomes more restrictive. I mean, that's one of the criticism of paleo, that we don't have grains and legumes. So we have to understand that people will want to take a food group out for some reason or other, but sometimes it's not going to be to your health benefit to remove something as nutritionally valuable as bone broth from your diet. It just won't do you the good that you expect, and but there's other ways of trying to get these things into your diet if for various reasons. If it's ethics, you should be able to find a way to get around it. I think things like vitamin K is problematic. Is that right? Because I don't know. When you're on a vegetarian diet,
I think that's true.
Yeah, and it's just not as bioavailable from plant products. That's the case with quite a few nutrients. Like I know B12, you have to supplement.
Yeah, B12.
If you're not eating.
And long chain omega-3s as well are problematic, which you get from pretty much just seafood and grass-fed dairy.
Yeah.
And these are things that you'll miss out on in a vegetarian paleo, but it's doable. I've seen healthy people on it. I haven't seen them on it for a long time. So I don't know if there's like longevity studies or like people who've been on it for 10 years and we've seen that they're fine. I don't know at all about that. I'll be very hesitant to do that with children. I think children need meat. But good luck. Yeah, and I think it's a really difficult thing to do. But if that's your conviction, it's highly respectful of that. And if you've got any questions, you can email us that we can help you on your journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you want to mention?
I was just going to say, not so much vegetarianism, but veganism. Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride, actually kind of a vegetarianism as well. She says in children it's almost a disguised form of starvation. Like she wrote the GAPS books, for those of you that don't know. She just says really question why you wouldn't be feeding your kids these foods just because they're so vital for growing bodies. So yeah.
I mean, if it's an issue of karma and whatever, like
like to each their own. Like, I don't want to be disrespectful. I'm just putting that out there for those that are kind of on the fence and not really sure why they're doing something. If it's a health thing or a bit of a trend or an experiment, just be so careful
with
and
children
and be mindful of all the nutrients they need. And if you're going to take big steps, really be educated about how you're going to make up for it in other parts of their diet.
Yeah, and I think also if you come from a place of sickness, it might be worth your while just accepting the fact that you're going to have to eat meat products for a while until you get back to a healthy place. Yeah. And then when you are at a healthy place, where you can go to become a vegetarian again and you can eat those foods like, in India, they thrive on a vegetarian diet that includes dairy in it, and they do really well. Just get yourself out of sickness and into health, and then from there, a paleo vegetarian diet is really good.
I just wanted to mention too, a lot of people think of paleo and GAPS as very meat heavy, and I know it can be, but I try to make 3/4 of the plate veggies, and like you can do that. And the meat can add the flavour, and you can have the fat in there, which totally satiates. And then you've got, like we said, the fillers if you want to. But you don't need to have gigantic amounts of meat, but it is part of a healthy diet, I think. So, yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, we'll stop there. And if you do have any questions, feel free to email us or ask us questions on our Facebook pages. So, Fouad, where can they contact you best?
So my blog is thefoodblog.com.au, and there's a contact form there, or you can send me an email at fouad@thefoodblog.com.au, which is FOUAD. Anything actually that you send to thefoodblog.com.au comes to me, so you can just type any kind of funny email address that you wish.
And then you've also got the Facebook page, which you might check if you're lucky.
Well, it's facebook.com/thefoodblog is where I'm at.
Okay, and for Rachel?
You can probably my Facebook page, so either the Real Soup for the Real Soul Facebook page, or ask in the Quirky Gaps group. Or if it's something really quite specific, you can email me at frostedbirdcage@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And mine's Quirky Cooking. So thanks so much for listening, guys, and we hope that was helpful. And I'll put some links underneath so that you can click through to our pages and We'll just be here if you need to ask something.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Guys. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.